Do, do, do.
Do, do, do.
Super. Do, re, do.
Do, re, do.
Do, re, mi.
Do, re, mi.
Mi, re,
Mi, mi.
mi. Mi, fa, mi.
Mi, fa, mi.
Mi, fa, fa.
Mi, fa, fa.
Fa, mi, mi.
Fa, mi, mi.
Mi, re.
Mi, re.
Re, do, do.
Re, do, do.
Having loaded the van the day before our wedding with over 2 tons of food, medical supplies, hygiene products and toys and games, we then went to enjoy our wedding day. Celebrating with our family and friends, we had no idea of the emotional and physical journey on which we were about to embark. Setting off at 10 p.m. the next day, we drove through the night to Harwich, catching the day ferry to the Hook of Holland. Following disembarkation, we continued our journey to our first stop in Menden, Germany, where I proved the art of romance was not dead in our married life by treating my new wife to a king pot noodle. Hitting the road again early the next morning, in our van which we had christened Old Smoky due to billowing exhaust fumes, we discussed a small issue we'd had at the hotel the previous evening.
We are leaving the weirdest hotel in the history of the world. They gave us the wrong key. It was all very cryptic. You had to put a code into a box to get the key. So at 10 o'clock last night we walked into somebody else's room who was already in bed and quite displeased about being woken up by 2 scruffy looking English people.
I also don't think the Germans were too taken with Old Smoky.
What did we say about being nice to Smokey, babe?
Look at the German dude who were looking at us. It does look like he's on fire, to be fair.
Following a couple of hours driving, we decided to take a break. Here, we met one of the other small organisations distributing aid directly to Ukraine.
So we stopped off to grab a coffee at a service station and look what is in the car park. So this is Yayan and he is part of Bristol for Ukraine. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your trip, please? That'd be great.
Yeah, so this is my second trip. I went out a few weeks ago, a month ago actually. So heading down to small crossing, Koszczenka it's called, which is south of Poland, and then crossing over into it's like a warehouse run by like a Czech volunteer company, which is like south of Lviv. Just dropping supplies and then taking people back from the border back to Belgium.
Amazing.
However, shortly after leaving the services, disaster struck.
So just about 5 minutes out of that last service station, something popped on the van. Just taking a look, the treads come off the tyre. It's not the best of roads to have been broken down on because there's people doing 150 miles past us, but we are on the hard shoulder and Bristol from Ukraine were right behind us and have stopped off and they have a jack. So we are working on this situation as we speak.
When the valve on the spare wheel broke under the weight of the van, we were towed from the autobahn following a 2-hour wait. It would take a new tyre and another 5 hours to get back underway, heading for Poland. Thankfully, other than a turbo pipe popping off Smoky and a leak in the power steering reservoir making turning progressively harder, the rest of the journey to Medyka in Poland was uneventful. Arriving at the house on a fish farm close to the Ukrainian border that was to serve as our base for the next 3 days, we met our hosts, Adrian the Norwegian, Ren from Switzerland, Jules from Germany, and Johan from Sweden, together with the other volunteers that formed a multinational response to Putin's invasion. Following a good night's sleep in what became known as our honeymoon tent, we were ready to go over the border into Ukraine. However, we first had to stop at the Medyka reception strip to collect some aid. This was our first look at where arriving refugees were welcomed into Poland. While help was plentiful from organisations such as World Central Kitchen, the lack of presence from the big organisations such as the International Red Cross was striking. We asked Jules about what he thought about the seeming lack of large aid organisations in Ukraine, and more about the work of the volunteers we were staying with.
To be honest, I haven't seen that much of big organizations driving or having a tent or something at the border. What you see as Red Cross is not Red Cross, because the tents are mostly just medical tents with volunteers as we are. And yeah, this makes me really sad, because everybody should participate in helping these people, especially because it's so near to everyone that lives in the Western world. And this is why we do this. Oh, we drove a lot of people out of Ukraine with terrible stories. We drove out a lot of people with terrible stories from the last 2 months. Wounded people, but basically stable people to get a better treatment in Poland. And we also have a lot of donations and bring them into Ukraine where they are really needed, because there's no really supply chains that supply the people there. So we bring food, we bring medical equipment, we bring like everything except of military stuff, obviously, because we make humanitarian aid.
Why do you do this? What do you get from it?
For me, it's like I'm a really selfless people. I always cared about other people, and this is what makes me happy. Like, my salary is that I am happy that other people are happy. Yeah.
To get through the border, we had to skip a long line of trucks and cars waiting to get back into Ukraine. We were not allowed to film once in the control area, but after a lot of form filling and back and forth, we got the vehicles, customs and passport control stamps we needed, and we were in the Ukraine. The queue of vehicles waiting to cross into Poland was just as long on the other side, but we were now heading for a school that had been converted into a refugee centre to house women and children who had lost husbands and fathers.
So we're driving through a reasonably rural town. We're just going up a dirt track now to get to this school, but I've missed actually getting any footage of it, but I think it's really interesting to see the fact there's kids' swings and slides and trampolines, everything my daughter has, these children had 8 weeks ago, and we're just about to embark on visiting a school full of kids that have been orphaned by this war and wives that have been widowed. And if there was ever a moment that it hits home, it's when you see these houses with such normal things in their gardens.
On arrival at the school, we were met by Cam Neve of United Sikhs, who explained the situation.
The aim of the school is basically to house a bunch of civilians. So these are people who either have chosen not to or don't have a way to get situated after, making it across the border. So they've chosen to stay in country for whichever reason. We have pregnant women, mostly elderly, and a few children, and their pets, of course. So basically we've converted this school into a housing kind of facility, and we have now set up activities and schooling, which I teach a music class, but now it's actually been opened up to the neighboring 4 villages for all of the children there to kind of come and join, because they have been deprived of an in-person education for however many months.
Thanks to the generosity of our community, we were able to donate over 2 tons of aid to the school, including over 50 shoeboxes donated by a local pub, which had been filled with small toys, games, books and snacks, with the help of a local Royal Mail depot. Larry Quigley, another of the volunteers at the school, explained what the donation would mean to those seeking shelter here.
The stuff that we've received today is, it's like God sent. It's like, it just put 2 vans here from the country and that, from UK, and it's the people here. It's so welcome to see people outside of here that's thinking that is thinking of Ukraine and the people that's here, and to get all these donations and the pet food and everything else, and the boxes for the kids. the kids are going to be thinking it's Christmas come twice in 1 year when they get these little boxes and that, and the name and the age groups on top and the little message inside. I tell you, can't wait to see their faces.
Before we could hand out the shoeboxes, the children had music class, which is used as a form of trauma therapy. Val didn't know it yet, but she was about to become a star performer.
Mi re, mi re, re do do, do do do. Super!
Following some outdoor activities, it was time to hand out the boxes to the children. The noise they made on opening them is something that will stay with me for the rest of my life.
Who's next? Is it you?
Aww.
And you?
Oh, for you? You're welcome.
Я будем дома открыть.
Two guys, where's my
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Какие маленькие.
Saying goodbye to the children was difficult. We had got to know them and participated in their classes and games. The impact on Val was really quite profound.
We've spoken to a lot of people, we've delivered the aid. It was all incredibly well received. The gratitude shown to us and the welcoming we received was, I don't have any words for that. And I'll be completely honest with you, I've massively struggled today with this project. Obviously having a 9-year-old at home, who I'm missing dreadfully. Just watching the children be able to have fun and be really delighted with what they were being given and really excited to spend time with us was just really humbling.
That evening, once back at base, Adrian gave us some more detail on the school and his reasons for running aid across the Ukrainian border.
We just managed to find a school that have about 40 kids, and we found out the other day, just now, we was the only one that supplied them with food, supplies and blankets and sleeping bags, everything. And I was shocked because they didn't have anything, they don't have money. And like us, that we are here, we don't earn any money. And we try as good as we can. And the first day we come to the school, they didn't have food for the next days. So we traveled to the store, we bought food for them for 1 month. And the next day, you guys come with a bunch of supplies, and you can see how glad they were and how amazing, they were so grateful for the work. Many people drive supplies to places that get a lot of supplies, but I want to get the supplies to the places that don't get supplies. Like this place, we are the only one who's supporting them. No one else is, because the problem is people, it's like driving supplies to big places, dropping off aid, and then it's this aid gets to places that has a lot of aid. But the thing I care about is the people that don't get aid, and this is the places I want to support. If they don't get these supplies, they will die. That's if they don't get the support from the volunteers and the Foreign Legion, we offer our lives. Everybody that's in the Legion or that is supply them with food, we are directly targeted.
The next day, we headed to Shemshel, the refugee centre located a couple of miles from the Medica border crossing. We made a conscious decision not to interview refugees, as we didn't want to add to their obvious distress. But Jules told us about the conditions inside when he'd spent a night there when he first arrived.
I tried to sleep there one night. It wasn't really possible because it's really noisy, all the lights are on, the kids playing all night, so I didn't rest at all.
While we were not allowed to film inside, what we encountered on looking around was distressing.
Right, so we have just been in to the shopping centre that's housing hundreds, if not thousands, people. I don't know the number. Obviously, we're not allowed to film in there. Sorry. I'll start again. This might take a couple of times. Right, sorry. Hi, so we've just been in to the shopping centre that's housing hundreds, if not thousands of people. You basically walk around as if you're walking around the White Rose Centre or Meadow Hall. It's you know, that's the building. But instead of shops and, you know, coffee pop-ups and things, it's just rows and rows and rows of beds. Children running around and playing. They've got pet food stalls. They've got all of the sanitary items we've asked you to send. They have a stall for it. So if someone's on their period, they can go get a pack of tampons, or someone's brought their dog, they can go get some pet food. Sorry, this has been a really, really difficult part of the trip. So we've handed out a ton of cards. We've spoken to lots of people. I've played with a little girl that was just enjoying running up and down the mall with a little scooter. They've got a lovely kids area set up, a big Lego area. A little boy didn't want to share his bubbles with me. The World Kitchen are here and they're cooking for everybody, volunteers, people coming off the buses with the most nutritious, amazing food you've ever seen in your life. And just as we were walking out to just get a minute before we started this video, a whole circus troupe was walking in. So you know what, whatever skills you've got free time, get out here.
However, we did get to meet some amazing people, including Raven Dyke.
Having suffered a spinal injury myself, I was sitting realising when I watched the old ladies and the people with disabilities being lifted and carried very undignifiedly out of buildings, I realised there was no support network for people with disabilities to be rescued. We brought over about 40 pieces of disability equipment, from walkers for the elderly, Zimmer frames, crutches and wheelchairs. We've distributed those to the train station in Poland, ready for people coming off the trains. Then we made contact with the humanitarian hub here in Shemshel, and we went over into Lviv to the spinal unit. In Lviv itself, cobble streets, very difficult for vans, parking hideous, but we managed it and we made connection with the depot where we were dropping the things, and within literally the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the parcels we had taken had been opened, packaged, stamped with postage, and were back out the door in their little minibus. The need here is not going to stop. Even if the war stops, which we hope it will, without giving in, these people will still need this support for at least the next 12 months, 18 months, maybe longer.
Our time in Medica was almost over, but we wanted to find out more about the work of the ambulance based where we were staying. These volunteers cross the front line regularly to pull sick and wounded people from the chaos of war, risking life and limb to do so. Johan and Ren told us more.
Every time I go to Ukraine, my heart starts beating fast because I never know what's going to happen. Although I do feel safer with the team that I'm working with. I know they have my back. And every single person that we've taken out of Ukraine, they've expressed their gratefulness. Even with the language barrier, we can see that they're happy to be able to leave this horror. But often they're quiet as well, which is understandable. It must be it must be awful. Like, I can't even imagine what they must feel like to have to leave their homes, their families, because not all the family members can go. It must be absolutely heartbreaking. The main problem while we go to Kharkiv is the fuel shortage. So we're often worried about suddenly breaking down in the middle of a war zone. The roads are not in a good shape. There are debris everywhere, their houses are destroyed, there's tank carcasses on the way. The bridges are destroyed, so we have to go around, which takes more time. Military checkpoints every half an hour, I would say. And that's been stressful also to suddenly hear the air sirens, and we know that we can't just stop and take shelter because we have to keep moving just in case something happens, someone needs help.
I drive an ambulance into Ukraine, getting patients out and some supplies in. I would say we wake up in the morning, we have hopefully a plan since the day before. We go in over the border, it can take half an hour, it could take 4 hours depending. And we go in, we meet up with the people we need to meet up with, or we go to the place we need to go to. And then we get the patient and we take the patients to safety. And if this is from Kharkiv to Berlin, or if it's from Lviv to just over the border, depends on the day. The whole situation is very dynamic and it changes from day to day. So in the beginning I was driving diapers and food and, you know, hygiene stuff, some medical stuff, then it became more medical stuff, and I mean now it's more rarely we drive this, but it's way more, the quality is much higher on the things we get. The fact is that on these areas and at the Tesco refugee center and everything, it's pretty much carried up by everyday people like me and my friends here who drove down and do unpaid work, and a lot of them are organized by themselves, and at few occasions they are like a coordinator that is a paid worker, but I mean without the regular volunteers they wouldn't be, like the work here wouldn't be possible.
After enjoying a day in Krakow, it was time to leave, but we had already planned our next trip for just under 3 weeks' time. This time, I will be heading for Lviv Children's Hospital with a specially donated load of medical equipment and supplies, with my friend and fellow volunteer, Mick New. Life on the road can get quite dull at times, and a few show tunes can ease the boredom.
Crazy on me, when a boy, she lives to me. Summer days drifting away, the summer night. Oh, well.
With our escorts leading the way, we headed into Ukraine. Other than the military checkpoints every 5 kilometres, and the billboards at the side of each road calling for victory and army recruits, life looked pretty normal. Once in Lviv, there was evidence of several burned out buildings following Russian missile strikes. Arriving at Lviv Children's Hospital, we were met by Zoriana Ivanyuk and her staff, who helped us unload in the pouring rain. We also got the chance of a short interview with Zoriana about the war.
I really hope that it will not last for a very long time, but what we will live our lives. We are getting used to war. We are trying to learn how to live with it, because actually patients are really different. If to compare between before war and right now, as all of them are coming with huge psychological trauma. And actually, none of us knows how to live with that, what to do with them. That's why all of us, we are learning what to do with this, parents, families, patients, because it's a really tragic history of every family. We have a lot of children right now from all over the Ukraine. Actually, we have wounded children with deep wounds, with amputated arms and legs, with fractured bones. But also we have a lot of refugees coming not wounded but with a chronic disease with congenital malformations of different organs, and they also need taking care of them, as the hospitals all over the Ukraine are not working properly. For example, bigger hospitals in Kharkiv, in Dnipro, also in Kiev have some troubles in working 24 hours. And that's why all the children with parents are now staying in Lviv, as it is one of the safest places actually in Ukraine for now. And we try to do our best to take care of them. Our problem for now is medical equipment. And because we have a lot of doctors coming from all over the Ukraine also. And for example, we have big cardio-surgical team coming from Kiev. They now are working here with our children, and also patients, as I told you about, also comes here from all over the Ukraine. And so we have specialists, we have patients, but the main problem is medical equipment, as all this high-level surgery needs really very expensive equipment. First of all, I would like to thank you for your support, for your time, for your just understanding of what is going on here. Because to my opinion, it's not normal that nowadays could be such kind of aggression and such kind of things. So what is going on there on the east or on the south of our country? That's why I really believe that only together we can win.
Driving back through Ukraine, there was time for reflection. A time to be thankful for the many people who have made our aid missions to Ukraine possible. A time to be grateful for all our kind donors, and to our volunteers who we now are honoured to call our friends. But it was also a time to plan how we move forward, and how we continue to provide the things the Ukrainian people desperately need. So, we end with an appeal. If you can help,